Abaddon the Despoiler, Warmaster of Chaos, is on a collision course with one of the only men in all of Warhammer 40k that is truly his peer, and even approaches being his equal. The Master of the Maelstrom, the Blood Reaver, Huron Blackheart, the Tyrant of Badab. And while Abaddon may be much stronger on the surface and have many times the number of troops that Huron commands, the Pirate Lord of the Red Corsairs has no upward mobility left to him unless he goes through the Warmaster. And this guy's not the type to sit idly by while his career goes as stagnant as a month-old gallon of milk in Nurgle's refrigerator. Now, other than ninjas, cyborgs, and barbarians, nothing is cooler to me than space pirates. And I love Space Marines, especially Chaos Lords. I typically find them to be extremely compelling characters. But Huron Blackheart is on another level. He's a total boss, and I have a theory that Games Workshop is actively setting up a confrontation in the lore, one between the Lord of the Maelstrom and the Warmaster of Chaos himself, and only one will walk away. I mean, Abaddon's been wearing that pro wrestling championship belt forever now. It's time for a cage match. So let's get straight into the lowdown dirty truth of where I'm coming from. Games Workshop has a little bit of a situation on their hands, and one that I personally find a bit heartbreaking as a longtime Abaddon fan, but the Warhammer 40k community as a whole has more or less rejected Abaddon. Everyone from folks my age who are a bit long in the tooth to brand new players who just started loves to disregard Abaddon and dismiss him as a poor character. And I'm not trying to argue that he isn't. That isn't the purpose of this video, but it's coming, and that's a threat, not a promise. But yeah, the main big bad of the entire setting is someone who's reduced to ridicule because of meme culture. Well, that and faction-focused imperial tribalism within the fanbase. I've met so many people who've told me they'd never read the Black Legion books because it's from the perspective of chaos and that's heresy. Like, there's some real-life space marine or something. But yeah, people love to crap on the Warmaster, but few have even read the books Black Legion and the Talon of Horus. And I'm explicitly referring to the character Abaddon exists as in Warhammer 40k. This pretty much has nothing to do with Horus Heresy. So, this is why I believe Games Workshop have brought Huron Blackheart and the Red Corsairs into the forefront. Both recent lore and tabletop models will now be followed with a campaign set in the Maelstrom, or around it, or whatever. But yeah, Space Pirate Chaos Marines are appearing out of the void left and right lately. But this is by design, I feel. The character they spent decades building up, only to be misunderstood and memed into oblivion, may just need to go to make way for a big bad that the fandom of 40k will actually respect. And if you read Huron Blackheart, Master of the Maelstrom, it makes it crystal clear that Huron is going to have a showdown with Abaddon eventually, no matter what either of them want. It is fate and the way the tides are flowing, and inevitability. And to me, this is awesome, even as a longtime fan of Abaddon and a guy whose second army ever was Black Legion when 3rd edition was still in its early days. Yeah, after Space Elves, I went straight heretic. I know. It took me years to find the Emperor's Light, but as his servant, I won't be judged by the likes of you, Imperial Citizen, Hydra Dominatus. I would love to see the Blood Reaver rise up and remind the top-knot-wearing Chthonian gangbanger that chaos is a fickle thing and power ebbs and flows both within the warp and in real space, and nobody else really has the means to do it. The way Huron perceives his own position, as well as that of the Warmaster, is quite interesting. Huron's aware that he's at the top of his game as a Chaos Lord, that he's the Lord of the Maelstrom, but he's not Warmaster. He didn't literally split the galaxy in half. From Huron Blackheart, Master of the Maelstrom. Huron stamps upwards, silently cursing the Imperium with every step, for he has not been free of suffering for nearly a century. The indoctrination he underwent as an Astral Claws neophyte enabled him to ignore pain that would incapacitate an unaugmented human, and the work of Valthex and Garion numbed it further. But there's no way around the fact that nearly half his body was vaporized or cooked. The places where his flesh interfaces with the biomechanics are a permanent raw wound that continually throbs in his mind. Almost worse are the phantom pains that still plague him. Despite the limbs in question being gone and wholly replaced with prosthetics, lesser minds would have snapped under the unending agony, or would have sought more and more desperate bargains to ease it. Huron knows well enough that some of Nurgle's devotees feel no pain. Those of Slaanesh consider it a form of ecstasy and use it to push themselves to new heights. He knows that the followers of Khorne would draw power from it in the form of battle rage, and acolytes of Tzeentch would be able to alter their bodies so that the pain was banished completely. All he needs to do is conduct the correct rituals, utter the correct incantations. However, Huron Blackheart is no god's puppet, and he will not let his own suffering drive him to make deals that he will regret. This pain reminds him of how the Imperium betrayed him, so he will keep it. It is a part of him. Without it, he might forget some of who he is. He continues to climb, his face locked into a scowl. So I read that first part to illustrate the level of willpower we're talking about when we speak the name of the Blood Reaver. He's a power unlike any other, and not even being melted in half is going to lessen his ability to make the Imperium pay. And I think one of the reasons why the community embraces Blackheart over Abaddon is the fact that his path to damnation and becoming a renegade traitor started with a tax revolt, more or less. Astral Claws were throwing tea right into Boston Harbor, and people can relate to that a lot. He sees the Imperium as a scam, a taxation hustle based on a religion that is a lie where the will of a dead guy is interpreted by the few elites and they get fat on Terra while the galaxy starves and or burns. Huron sees the Chaos Gods as a scam too, though apparently he had no choice but to make a deal with them, or perish. But he's absolutely determined to maintain his current position and not fall further into debt to them. So why is it inevitable that Abaddon and Huron come to conflict? Well, as a guy who is indeed at the top of his game as a Chaos Lord, Huron's about the only thing out there that would even have a chance of challenging the Warmaster. Abaddon knows that Chaos Marines and armies follow strength above all other things. As Huron says, Abaddon has had 10,000 years to become what he is now. Huron has only been at his life as a renegade Chaos Space Marine pirate for 90 years or so. He's 400 years old thereabouts now, as he used to be Luft Huron, chapter master of the Astral Claws. But now, what he is something that has made a very dark pact with the gods of chaos. A pact that Huron is beholden to in every way, and keeps his shattered remains alive even though his bionics and augmetics are janky and just shouldn't even work at all. And Huron knows that Abaddon has made pacts of his own with the dark gods of chaos. Pacts that must outweigh his own, though he doesn't even speculate on what the nature of such bargains would be. It's interesting that the Lord of the Maelstrom is always hearing the whispers of the warp, tempting him, offering him power in exchange for more of his soul or whatever dark agreement he made with the gods. They let him know that he doesn't need to suffer in immeasurable pain at all times, that each of the gods has their own means to take the agony away. But Huron is such a beast that he lets it stay and suffers constantly, just so he doesn't have to cede more of his essence to the gods of the warp. He's a broken marine that shouldn't work any longer, but his indomitable will and the power of chaos has him almost at his full strength physically. But Huron Blackheart has powers now that Luft Huron did not have. He's not exactly a regular psyker, but he can wield the warp itself as a weapon in some ways. He has powers for sure, but they seem tied to his familiar, the Hamadria. Still, he uses the Immaterium as a weapon in some situations. So it's more like he's a warlock than a sorcerer or a wizard, to put it in D&D terms. But it seems that Games Workshop is in a funny situation. They've built up Abaddon for almost as long as Warhammer 40k has existed, but people are categorically rejecting him, which is definitely happening no matter how people like me feel about the character. And now they are building up a guy that is an obvious rival level, just one step down from the Warmaster and growing in power and influence. This excerpt from the end of Huron Blackheart, Master of the Maelstrom, by Mike Brooks, is the most illuminating statement on the inevitability of conflict between the two biggest Lords of Chaos. Let us go and drench the world of the White Scars in blood, and make mountains from their corpses until they realize that their emperor is truly dead and Guilliman is nothing but the desperate, doomed last hope of an imperium built on lies. And what of Abaddon, Lord? Valthex inquires. Huron sighs. What of him? We're bringing death to the Imperium. He can hardly take issue with that. And if he does? Huron smiles. A Warmaster has fallen before, Valthex. It can happen again. Yes, total baller energy there. Dude knows that he's a big fish and is just getting bigger, and eventually he's going to have to eat the shark in the pond or it's going to have to eat him. And this is echoed in how he looks at the Primarchs. His opinions on them were quite surprising to me, as I didn't expect him to feel this way about some of them. And that's pretty awesome. Again, from Huron Blackheart, Master of the Maelstrom. There are perhaps a couple of hundred craft in orbit around New Badab at the moment, at the least. And that is not the full extent of the armada at his command. There are also the ships of Hell's Iris and the smaller outposts at Great Lysian and Helix Beta. It's an impressive force, the Mega says, neutrally, and something nudges at Huron. Impressive, he repeats. Impressive, Data Smith? I fled from the Imperium while half dead, and at the head of the tattered remnants of my chapter. In the decades since then, I have forged a fighting force capable of breaking a segmentum, should I wish to break it. He snorts. Abaddon's might is greater, but I have had less than a century to build my power, and Abaddon has had 100 times that. The First Legion's bleat of the history and mock us as thin-blooded newcomers to their so-called long war. But where are their Primarchs whose legacy they cling to so tightly? Horus and Kurz are dead, and Alfarius' name is bandied about by uncountable rudderless warbands. The Ultramarines claim to have killed him on Escrador, but I saw the reports from the Denevra subsector. Still, if those wretches of the Alpha Legion know anything, they're not sharing. And what of the rest? Angron, Perturabo, Fulgrim, and Lorgar hide themselves in the depths of the Eye, being precisely no use to anyone, and it took 10,000 years for Mortarion and Magnus to stir themselves. Yes, in so many ways, Huron Blackheart is the Warmaster that the Warhammer 40k community has deserved and wanted for a long time. He's a pirate, and that's the raddest thing ever. I mean, wait, he's a cyborg too? Yeah, all he needs is to also become a ninja, and he'd be the most awesomest dude that ever existed. Maybe Blackheart could learn a thing or two if he went to old Diamond Dave's ninja school down in the trailer park. To me, this guy's just way more compelling a character than Abaddon. And that's coming from someone who hasn't been on any social media other than YouTube even once in half a decade or more, and I don't pay any attention to memes at all. From someone who has actually read the Black Legion books and loves the character as well. Yeah, Huron is just more fun in many ways. Interestingly though, he has former Black Legionnaires among his Red Corsairs. Pirate's gonna pirate. Huron has a Blackstone fortress, an army so massive he doesn't even know how many resources are truly at his disposal, and the will to defy the gods of the warp themselves. Huron is either being set up to take the crown, as it were, from Abaddon and rise to Warmaster, or to actually make Abaddon look good for a change and give him a battle befitting the Warmaster of Chaos. I put Huron up there with the best leaders Chaos has, along with Solomon Akura, though Huron does appear to be much more powerful than him. And he's getting stronger at a much faster rate than Abaddon is, though he has a lot of catching up to do. But wouldn't it certainly shake up the setting if Huron took Abaddon's head for a trophy? With the Maelstrom campaign coming, and the new model range dropping next week for the Corsairs and Huron, we can expect them to pick up on this storyline and take it further. And it left off on that massive cliffhanger where Valthex asked, what about Abaddon? As Vashtor and the Silent King face off, as Guilliman and the Silent King face off, as Guilliman and Abaddon face off, it might just be the perfect time for a new power to rise. And it would be just like a pirate to seize the opportunity.